Hey y'all, this is Sarah, and I am sharing my last week of July. I am still kind of feeling that tropic vibe, that beach envy vibe, so I decided to go with coconuts. My son loves it because that is one of the names we call him, is Coconut. So I wanted to share this one, and I'm sharing it today using a round stencil just to help me get all of my sizing pretty close. However, I will tell you that I did try it freehand. Now the grid pattern on this did help me quite a bit. Try to keep the shapes similar in size, so you can try this freehand. It's more about adding the details, I think, is the bigger part of this. So you can see I did not do a great job. I still think it turned out fine. If you don't have a circle stencil, that is totally okay. You can wing it. But I think you could do it with a circle stencil. I think you could try to freehand it. I did a practice run. You know me, I always mention that I do a practice on an old planner just to see if my markers and my coloring hold up to it, and I don't know, for a little practice too. So we're gonna jump into this one, and I'm gonna pull my pages out, set this to the side. I'm kind of excited about this one because I want to share. That is not washi tape, and I love it. I love animal print, and I feel like it can be used for lots of other pages too. I was determined to make it work on this one for some crazy reason. I'm not sure why. I just felt in the mood for animal print. So I can't wait to share this little animal print kind of faux washi tape with you. So I've got my spread for this week. And first things first, I always start with the areas that I know I need. So think about your functionality of your planner and places that you might need. You don't necessarily have to follow the way that I go, but it might make you think of some ways that you can use your planner a little more beneficial to you. I like things in sections. I like things divided up simple. As far as my meal plan, that one's definitely a go-to. So I'm just taking a ruler at the bottom of mine, and I'm using this tan highlighter. Guys, I have a hard time sharing which markers I'm using because I've done wore the name off of a lot of them. But it's just a generic tan highlighter with a chisel tip. I prefer doing this part with a chisel tip because it just makes that line easier to create. I'm not going to put a lot of pressure against my ruler. And in one swoop, I'm going to go from end to end. So when that dries, there's no start and stop points. There's no hesitation points. And it almost comes out looking like it's printed. If you look at some of mine, it tends to come out looking like it has been printed on. So I'm going to do the same thing again for another section, just a little bit further up. And I'll do the very same thing at the top for, I like to put my weather up there. And I gotta be honest with y'all, having the weather thing up there, especially right now when we have 108, is really nice. If you're planning to go do something for the week or get out and run some errands or do this or that, it's very nice to know that, oh my goodness, that particular day is going to be 108 degrees. You might want to pick a different day. So I'm going to go ahead and do these. When I start on the washi tape section, we're kind of going to do the very same thing, but a little different. And let's get all of this in. I have spilled something on my page, and it's bugging me right there. Okay, so that's where I'm at. And I'm actually going to switch markers, and I want to share with you what I'm using pretty much for most of this spread, other than just having that tip of that highlighter. I think I'll be using these which are the Colors of the World, Crayola. These are the big childhood chunky ones. Got a lot of fun neutral colors. I love this collection. I imagine that I'm going to be obsessing with this collection for quite a while. I keep trying to swap back and forth so I don't wear it out already, but I have been using it quite a bit. I also have a couple other colors of the chunkies. So this one says seafoam green, and this one is teal. So those are probably the majority of the colors I'm going to be using, but you could probably do this in any kind of color scheme. I will recommend some kind of beigey something for the animal print part. So I'm going to start with my washi tape area. I'm using this one, and it says it's light medium golden. It's pretty close to the same color as my highlighter. It's just, I felt like I could lean this one sideways and get it a little wider. So wherever you decide you want your washi tape, I think mine will be going along this section. So I'm going to try to line this up. And I've got this marker leaned over kind of as far as I can lean it this way. Let's see if I can do it even more with the cap out of the way. So I'm leaning it just to get a little bit more width. And it's okay if you don't get this perfect, because when we start putting the actual spots on there, it'll hide any lines you might have gotten. So as far as width goes, I'm going to try to determine how wide I want this. And I'm just lining up against the last line I just drew. And if you want to make sure that you're not taking it too far, if you're a little unsure about doing this part. These I never outline typically, but this fake washi tape look, I'm going to outline it. So I'm just going to measure out my width and pull that line end to end. And I'll go ahead and do my other side too. So I think I'm doing this one probably around, that's probably about 1/2 inch wide here. And you guys can see part of why I love my Dollar Tree Click ballpoints, or really any ballpoints at this point, but some flow a little better than others. But if you look at that, you would be hard pressed to tell right off the bat which one of those lines was actually the printed one and which one I just drew on. Okay, back to the side. Coming back in with this marker. And I'll line it up right there. And just pull it across. And I've got a little gap here. I'm just going to try to fill it in the best I can. It's okay, seriously, if this doesn't come out 100% perfect. You want to try to get the lines as even as possible. So we're going to let that dry. We're going to go ahead and do the same thing to this one. And because we're layering so many colors and one of those colors is extremely dark, we want to let this dry so that it doesn't bleed through. Now that my strips have had time to sit and dry, I'm coming in with, this one is called Deep Almond. It's just a brown color. You can use any brown color, I think. So I'm going to just do some weird little spots, some blobs really, and I'm rotating them kind of up and down a little bit. You can make these as big or as small as you want to. And you can see there's no real shape to them. It's almost like I'm trying to draw a circle and I can't quite get it right. So I'm going to go all the way across and do the same thing. and give these time to dry since they are a little bit darker colors and I am layering them. So this is what my little blobs look like at this point. I'm going to let them sit and dry and move on to a couple other things. I want to go ahead and start with my larger coconut cluster here. So I think I'm going to try to line it up somewhere about here. That's typically where I go. I don't necessarily have a lot of things that I put in this this dot grid, so I get to play there a lot more often. I'm coming in with just a stencil, so I'm going to be using this oval stencil, but I got to tell you, freehanding it did not turn out terrible. As a matter of fact, it kind of gave the edges of my coconuts a little more texture to me, trying to even out the roundness. So you can try this freehand if you want. I'm going to try it this way. And I think I will start with my front coconut, so to speak. So I'm going to align that one about as close to the edge as I can. And I'm going to just do half of this oval here. So this shows me a midsection. And very seldom do I pencil things out before I do it, if you guys have noticed. I tend to just go straight in with a pen. Because I want those more jagged edges anyway, I'm going to go ahead and try it with a pencil. So there is my first attempt. So a letter, kind of a letter C, is what we're working for. And I'm hoping, nope, this is not going to be big enough. So I'm going to try this with maybe this little curve. I'm going to be honest with you, I don't remember how I did it the first time. So I'm winging it here. I've come back in with my oval, and I think I'm just going to go this route and kind of just scratch in my details. So I'm bringing the same oval over, and I'm going to tuck this one just a little bit behind there. So I'm looking like that at the moment. Now I can come in with my pen, and I'm going to be using kind of that scratchy method. I'm not really sure what to call that, but I'm going to be using this scratched in method. And I wonder if one of these would help me. None of these are big enough, so I've got to wing this one. I'm going to, actually, to make it easier for me, I know this seems like it shouldn't be easier. This is the Very Deep Almond. And I'm going to go ahead and come around this top curve. And I'm just getting the color down somewhere in that shape. Don't worry, I'm going to fix that shape some as we go. I think that's what we're hoping for. If you guys notice, I never color fully in the lines, but it's okay because the way that I layer things typically hides that. So if you're not great at coloring in the lines, you are not the only one. I have to tell you, this marker is pretty interesting. So when it goes down, it almost looks like a greenish brown, and then it's starts to dry and it changes a little. So I find that interesting, the way the color changes. So I'm going to try to round this area out some with my marker. And I want to give that a second. It looks crazy. It looks like chaos. Look at it. That looks terrible, like a child did that. Don't worry. I just had a discussion with one of you guys today about practice and things coming out looking like a kindergartner. You know who you are. Mine do too. At the start, mine do too. It's the details that I try to show that I think helps a lot. So speaking of, let's go ahead and start putting some other details in. For me, my art gets to go a lot of times over the weekend because I use my weekends more for memory keeping, and then the week is usually for tasks and appointments and reminders and things like that. But my weekends, I don't list as much of that stuff, so I get to use it more for memory keeping. And that's the route I'm going with, or that's the idea that I'm going with, is that I can definitely put a little more art down this Friday, Saturday, Sunday section. So I'm going to go on a diagonal, but you could use this same idea and put it anywhere that's useful to you. So in order to do that, I usually try to give myself a little line there. When I do these on the diagonal like this to go up that weekend, I usually just give myself some kind of little line to follow so I know which direction I'm going. I'm going to come in with this circle right here and just start plopping down a few coconuts. And I'm going to twist them different sides or different directions. So let me take this one down here. And I'm alternating. So I'm alternating between a whole coconut and a half coconut. I'm tilting them and shifting them. And let's see. On the half coconuts, I'm just going halfway around, just like we did on the other side, but just on a smaller scale. You could add some of these to your individual boxes. Let's turn this one on its side. And I'm trying to keep within that line so that they kind of float upwards. And for this one, I'm going to tilt it kind of funny so it'll fit. So it's going on like a major tilt here. And then I'll make this guy go sideways. And this one's kind of just normal, I guess. So I'm just doing them all kinds of wonky ways. Like they just spilled across the page. So that gives me an idea, if you guys can see that. I know the lighting's a little weird today. I'm not sure why. So for some of these, I'm going to go ahead and just color them in. Let me see. I'm going to erase this pencil line just so once I put marker on it, it's a little harder to erase once marker is over it. Okay, I think that's good enough. So I'm going to go ahead and come in and fill these in some sort of way. And I'm trying to keep my strokes going the same direction. It's not going to be perfect. It's fine. I'm doing the big ones first, the full ones. because this brown is a really dark color, I want to go ahead and get this part done and let this sit for a second so I can layer all the other colors over the top of it. And that's really the trick to being able to color so much on your pages, is jumping around like that, a little ADHD style. So those are filled in. I'll get to the half ones later. I want to jump back to this guy. So the first thing I'm going to do is start scratching some of my lines in. And I don't know the technical name for this other than to just kind of scritchy scratch your pen along here. I do that. One, it's giving this coconut a little texture. So it works for this particular piece. It works for a coconut. And two, I am not necessarily great at following an outline that shows in my coloring and in my drawing in general. So this is a really good way for me to kind of get around the fact that I'm not super great at that. So now I can also, if I didn't color it in well, I can make those edges look a little cleaner. So I'm going to get a little closer. Maybe you can see what I'm talking about. This kind of scratched out line definitely it makes it feel like that coconut has, well, a coconut texture, I guess. So I'm going to do the same thing around this white area. And I'm just scratching along. Right here, I don't think I have an oval. Maybe I do. This one might give me a good start. I think maybe this one. So that's going to help me a little bit. Mostly we're going to wing this part. So right around this area, I'm going to follow in. And for me, it's probably easier to do upside down. So I'm going to scratch twice and flick up. And I don't know if you can tell what that does, but it slightly widens that line there when I scratch twice, and then it gets thinner. And it's okay if you're not getting smoothly around there, because that usually has some kind of texture to it. So as I get around this edge, I'm going to start going sideways with that. Maybe down at this angle. And you can just kind of see. You don't have to go all the way around. I skipped some spots. I just wanted to give it a little texture. So that's where I'm at so far. On some of these side ones, how we went at an angle. We're going to come off of that the same way, but we're flicking downwards. But we're going to go straight down. So that one went kind of at an angle, and then the little line came straight down. Same with this one. Even though this line is at an angle, we're going to come straight down with that. I might flick a few lines from up above. Starting to look a little nutty to me. I'm not super happy about my curve here. I don't think I did it quite as well as I did this one, but I used the stencil a little bit more with this one, but I wanted to show that it's absolutely okay to wing it. I still think my results will come out cute. I am trying to, where this little marker line is, that's a hair darker right there, I am doing my best to trace around that so it looks like the thick rim of the coconut. Maybe you can see. Now that I've got those things scratched in, I might even come in and I'm doing really light flicks. These lines are really faint. Let's see. Around my edges, I started coming in and just scratching in some of that coconut texture. Can you see that? I'm just scratching along. I'm going to do that on the same side, on the other side. I'm just literally scratching my pen across there and letting it touch wherever it touches. I'm going to do the same thing for my big coconut, and I'm going to focus starting right here along this bottom section, and I'm going to do a little off this upper portion, and these flickety lines are kind of curving around with it. Might bring it up a little. I'm just scribbling really all over this coconut, throwing a few dots in there. And right about here, I'm going to try to draw 3 ovals all on my own. So let's hope for the best. 1, 2, 3. I feel like they should be a little bigger. There we go. So we've got some coconut vibes going here. Might throw a few dots on there, a few dashes. Might even flick a few lines off that side just to make it look like, I don't know what that stuff is on coconuts. It makes them kind of look hairy. The little sprigs that are on them. So I flicked a few of those out. And I think I might want a little darker right around there. So we've got the start of some coconuts. We're going to do the same thing to our little guys as we do them. Same premise, just on a smaller scale. So I'll do one really quick. The others I'll do off camera and then do the half ones. So I'm doing my best to follow this outline. Not great at it. That's why these scratchy lines are perfect for this. And let's pick a side. I'll pick this side to kind of be my darker. So I'm just scratching these lines all over the place, throwing a few dots and dashes. I'm going to get my little ovals in. My little bowling holes. So I got those in. And we have another little coconut. And you can see I didn't even outline this one great when I did it with the marker. But my pen right here, all the little scratchies, definitely helping that look better. Now a lot of that looks intentional, even though we know it just happened to come out that way. So there's a little coconut, maybe a few sprigs off the end of it. And let's hope for the best on my ovals. So I'm going to go ahead and do this one. Okay, for my little guys, I suspect these ovals might help me. I mean, I could turn around and try to freehand this, but I'm going this route. I'm taking right at the edge and matching another oval to that. And maybe I want to go, let me try one of these skinny ones. These are a little bit skinnier ovals. I'll try one of those. I'll rotate it out, see which one I like better. So now we've got a bowl. If you're trying to figure out how to draw a bowl, there we go. And this one will be fun because I've got to make it hide under what should be washi tape. So I'm blending it into that. And maybe I'll make this one slightly bigger. Just have one that's a little different. Nah, I'm gonna keep them all the same. I make up my mind as I go. That's part of the creative fun for me. Okay. You could easily turn those into cantaloupes as well if you're a cantaloupe fan. I'm not a big cantaloupe fan, but everyone in my family loves cantaloupe. My kids all love cantaloupe. My husband does, and I don't even like to cut them. The smell is terrible to me. I don't even like to cut them. I don't know why. I don't like the texture either. And I love all food typically. That's probably one of the few that I would say nope. But I like how pretty they are. Okay, so that's what I've got for these guys. You can see that. And let's come in with my very deep almond. So I'm going to fill this in. All the way around that kind of bowl-like shape. This one I'm trying to blend into that washi tape. Well, I get so serious when I color. Especially when you put the Crayola markers in my hands. It's kind of like a little time machine. It takes me back to childhood a little bit. Okay, so take a look at those. I did not fill them in super well. It's okay. It works for the texture of what we're actually trying to create here. So don't panic if you find it difficult to color in with those. And so far we're good. We're all clean on the back side, and that's a pretty dark brown. Same thing with this one. I'm going to do the exact same thing I did with the other one, just on a much smaller scale. I might not put as many of the lines just to keep it from being too busy so small. And because it is so small, it makes it a little harder on my eyes to hit those tiny lines. I still will try to put a rim on this one, like right here. I'm still going to try that. Oh, I did that pretty good. I'm almost a little impressed with me. I followed around that fairly well at that size. I'm going to take it all the way up around this top and try to smooth out the look of that. Might darken a few of these lines a little. I don't feel like I got them great, but... And then scratch across here. Throw a few jaggedy things in there. And voila, we have a tiny little half coconut. I did do that as a drink here. And then made a little pineapple slice and stuff. But I don't think I'm putting that on this one. I don't really drink the fruity drink stuff. However, I would not mind having one of those in my hand on a nice sunny beach at the moment. I am in Texas where it's been 108, 109, and there's no beach. There is in South Texas, but there is no beach where I am. There is no place to cool off in that kind of temperature. You just want to hide from it. So all the same on these. Obviously, you can put as much of the detail in as you want. I didn't find it super necessary on these tiny ones. I'm just doing a few little things to give the idea that the details are there and move along. Throw a few little small lines here and there to make it look like it's kind of cupping down. So I got all the scratchies in on even my little guys. The next thing that I might jump in and do is I'm going to put a little sand under here. And I think I'm going to go with this light medium gold. I think that's what that says. I'm just jaggeding out some sand. So just shake the marker around right underneath it. Let it fade out any which way it's going to go. And I'm going to come back in now with my pen and do the same thing. I'm just shaking my hand and letting the ink go where it's going to go. Try not to think too hard about it. So just a little squiggly and some dots and dashes, and voila, you've got some sand sitting under your coconut. So as I was playing with this, I'm gonna do this to y'all because it's been doing it to me this whole time. As I mentioned, I call one of my sons, his name is Dakota, and we call him Coda a lot, which has also turned into coconut. So when he saw me doing these, he started singing, put the lime in the coconut. And so the whole time I'm doing these now, my brain is singing, put the lime in the coconut and shake it all up. And that's the only part I know, and my brain has it on loop. So since I just did the sand there, I want to go ahead and pop over here and put a little sand in here. And I just squiggled it out. I'm dragging it down some. You can see. I just kind of bounce my marker on there and get the ink down. So maybe right under the coconuts, I might draw a few extra scratches under these big ones to look like they're sitting there, if that makes sense. You could do that to these guys over here too. These little guys, just throw a few lines under it to make it look like it's sitting there in that sand. I don't know, it makes it look like it to me. Now that I've got that done, I'm going to come in and I can hit this area. I can go ahead, that's had enough time to draw. And so I've shown all these style markers, all these, you know, kid-friendly markers, the Super Tips, the Target version, Michaels has a version, Crayola obviously has a version, Crazy Art has a version. All of them I've tried on Happy Planner paper. This is the one that I like to use if I need a good black that doesn't give me a lot of problems bleeding through. This Crazy Art one seems to give me the best luck versus all the other brands and variations like this. This is kind of my go-to, really, if I want to get a good, deep black ink. Especially on your Happy Planner and not have it bleed really bad. So to do these, I'm doing the same kind of squiggly stuff. Almost in a bean shape. An uneven bean. That one kind of looks like a peanut. Or some really chunky parentheses. And I'm rotating which direction they go. I didn't want them all even across. I wanted it to look like a wild print. So they're all going different directions. You might even enclose one entirely. You can see how I just went around that. And I'm just changing my paper around so that I can get in different directions. You can make them as weird and wonky shaped as you want to. It all works out. If you feel like you had one of these blobs that looked kind of funny, the black absolutely will go over that lighter brown color and make your blob a little smaller if you did one that was way too big. So really just let your hands do whatever they're going to do. And it really, visually, it ends up working out. So that's what that looks like so far. My next step on that was to come in and where I've got these gaps where I absolutely couldn't fit another big spot like that, I'm just taking my black and doing some wiggly stuff. Some more little blobs. You can see it's coming together really quickly. Now it's starting to look like, well, pretty much like washi tape. In person, you definitely kind of want to reach and feel across it to see if it's washi tape or not. So now we have some cute custom washi tape. I did do this one a little bigger than my my test run. If you notice, I went a little wider. I liked it so much, I thought I wanted to make it a bigger impact on my page. I really wish that I had thought to put it down here and just kind of slide everything up, but I'm okay with that. While I am sitting here, I'm bringing back this very deep almond that we did our coconuts in. You could use regular brown. I'm sure regular brown would work just fine for coconuts. It's just, I had new markers. It's back to school season. They've got all the markers out. So I'm going to flick some color down the sides. Remember, this is the same color, but we've had time for it to dry. So now we're layering a little darker on it. And if you notice, I'm just kind of smushing some of that along the sides and the bottoms. I might pull a little up over this way and maybe pull a little up over this way. We're going to do our holes, our coconut holes here. Our little bowling ball type holes. So I don't put a lot of thought into where my ink goes. I just kind of flick it on there. I'm sure real artists would probably panic seeing me do that, but I just kind of put some ink down. And I put it closer to the bottom because that seems most likely. Same thing over here on my bigger ones. And you'll see, I just kind of, same way, same idea as I did with the pen. I certainly want to get it darker right here where these guys meet. So I might flick a little around that way. I feel like this one would be slightly darker being behind this other one, but I'm not sure how much darker. But I feel like that gives it a little depth, a little something. Now the ink on these have settled a little bit while I was doing the other ones, and you can see it works. I mean, it was a little crazy just throwing the ink down there like that, but once it dries, it ends up blending really kind of nicely. You can do the same thing with your sand. You can come back in with your sand and do basically the same thing. Layer over it and put a few flecks of darker right under your coconut. So once these things have time to dry, you can get multiple tones or multiple shades of the same color. So now there's a little bit more darkness there in the sand. How fun is that? Now it makes me really want to go to a beach. So all these have had a little bit of time to dry. I'm going to add a little bit of greenery to mine. Although I will say I do kind of like this monochromatic brown, but I'm going to add a little seafoam colored green. And this is super, super simple as far as I went really, really easy with the leaves. So I'm trying this standing up. Let's see how well I do. So I did a little flicky line that way. And maybe a little flicky line that way. And I'm just flicking upwards. Like that. And I'm putting pressure and then lifting up some as I flick so that it gives like these pointy, maybe tropical leaf look. And I'm going a little shorter with them as I go down. I might add some, let's go here. So a little flick there, maybe a little flick over there. And same thing. Pretty simple, I think. It gives me that tropical feel I was looking for and let me bring in some kind of aqua color. And which direction do I want to go here? Maybe both. Maybe, no, I'm just going to go to the side here. So I'll do this one and that one. So these are a little smaller. I try to get my leaves somewhat opposite of each other. I'm going to go over to this side where my bigger coconuts are. And I might swoop this way. And I might even swoop, let's see, do I have room for that one? Yes. So I'm going to swoop this way too. And flick these lines out. This is pretty simple for a leaf or for some greenery. I did the same thing during the winter time, or very similar, just trying to get some pine needle looks. So now that I've done that, let's get a little closer. I can detail it out a little. So I'm doing just a faint flicky line down and join those together. So I'm bringing it in and tapering it down a little. On my leaves, just did a little point Mostly I'm doing my best to try to outline. Some of the white is still there showing because I'm not outlining perfect, but that's fine. It looks like highlights on those leaves. And then some of the leaves, I might come in right at the base of them and flick a little upwards. A couple of lines that way. Some of my leaves might be a little too small to do that, or too skinny. So you can see I'm not stressing too much about it. Just flicking around them, and hopefully it lands pretty close to the tip of those. And I'm going to do that to all of these leaves, all of these little branches. And then I'm going to add a little bit more color to them with the slightly darker teal. So for instance, this one that I already outlined, I'm bringing this teal color in. You could do the same thing with the other color, the seafoam green. Just let it dry and layer it, but I look for any excuse I can to play with my markers. So I'm flicking a little down those branches. And I could probably go ahead and do those. So I'm going to go ahead and finish outlining all of these. If you do a line on these that you don't like, bring your teal back in, or your seafoam color back in, your lighter green back in, and just flick some of those lines upwards. And now it looks like you have a lot more texture there. I got my outlines done, and I'm going to come in and do one little thing. It's just a small little thing, but where the tips of my leaves are, I'm just going to flick a little line so these look a little more exotic and pointy, and I don't know. It was just a thing I added. So I'm just putting kind of a point at the end of all my leaves. And kind of see, it just gave them a little something. And since I didn't draw them necessarily super great, it looks kind of intentional this way. So I'm just going to tip all of them with just really just a flicked line. And I feel like that gives them a little bit more exotic look, tropical look. And it was just a super easy little detail to add, especially if you weren't super satisfied with how your leaves turned out. So now I've got some aqua on that page. I've got a lot going on. And now I'm going to start, I think that's all I'm going to do with artwork. And you guys see, I've gotten fingerprints all over this already. But I think now I'll go ahead and add some of my boxes and my squares. And I wanted to throw this idea to you that you can do tiny versions of a little animal print. I thought that was pretty cute. For my boxes and things like that, if you're a sticker person, now is when you go in and add your stickers. I'm not a sticker person, so I'm going to come in and add some different squares on some dates that I think I need to add them to. So these are just some cheap stencils that I got on Amazon. It was like a 16 stencils for just a few dollars. But normally I don't show this part all that much. I just kind of pause and get all my things on here and show you my final result. But I did want to remind you that if you're putting squares down like this, or little shapes to use, my favorite route to go is to just get my squares there and come in and top them off with, either you can color code this way, and I did a video about this. You can either color code your task or family members or what have you this way, or you can just make it match whatever your spread is. But I tend to match my spread rather than use a color code system. But I know a lot of people organize themselves using color codes and things like that. On my doodle stuff, I think the last thing I might do is come in. I've just got this gray marker. And honestly, I'm going to tell you, I have figured out that this light Crayola Super Tip, this real light color gray, makes a very good shadow one. The one I'm using the most, that you see me use the most, is this Sakura light gray. And you can buy these, if you have a pop shelf near you, you can get these as individual markers. So I buy these just for shading and shadowing and that kind of thing. But I have found for doing my boxes, when I shadow them, and I'll show you really quick, I usually throw like a little drop shadow under my boxes. And you could go all the way down one side or however which way you want to put your shadow in. But this is the fastest, easiest way to me. And I'm just going to start a hair over from the corner of this box. And then stop just short of the end. Same thing there. I just stopped just short of the end. You could come up and go around the sides, either which way. But to me, I like adding that just as one more little detail for my eyes. But it's a really quick way to do it, just putting that one line under. So I'm using this one now. I'm going to come here on my pineapple, or sorry, my coconut, and swoop around there, just drop a little color here and there, a little gray here and there. So I did it on that one. I'm going to do it on these little open guys. So maybe down at that curve and a few little spots on the side part of the coconut. Same here and here. At this point, I'm going to just come in, grab a side. I'm going to the right because I'm right dominant anyway. So that one I went to the right. I can't do that on here, so I'm just going to go to the left side with this guy. Swoop around on that one. And I'm just going around each one and throwing a little slight shadow there. This one over here, I can get this side since there's nothing to its side. And maybe just a little bit right around there. I don't know if that's where it's supposed to go, but that's where I'm putting it. So this is pretty much what I've got. The only thing I might come in and do is one of my favorite little Dollar Tree markers is this Crafter Square metallic white marker. And it's not really metallic. The other ones in this series are, but this one just really kind of comes out being a translucent white. So I might come in here. And it looks fairly white right at first, but as it dries and soaks in, it loses some of that and it fades. So I'm just doing it here in my little, somewhere here in my little coconut dips. Just throw that in there. And I might even come back now with my very deep almond color. And just swoop around, like right around there. Same for these. I'd already darkened them once, but now that I've got that little lighter color in there, I'm going to do it again. Just like a letter C right around it. And I think this is pretty cute. I personally really like it. I think it's fun. I'm going to go ahead and add some of my details, like my meal plan and my weather, and then I'll pop back in and show you what my final page looks like. Maybe you can pick some ideas up from it. So all I've got left now is to go in and fill in all the things that I want to fill in, finish out my week, and I think I love it. I am super happy with the end result. For somebody that's never tried to draw coconuts before, I really like how it ended up turning out. I hope you had fun and maybe you picked up a tip or two or some ideas. Just a little something to get your creative mind going. Sometimes it just takes one little phrase, one little thing, one little visible cue to really get your ideas kicking. So I hope that helps. I am getting ready to do my next one because I'm trying to get ahead. I've been slacking really, really bad, but I'm going to go ahead and try to get my next one done. I will talk to you guys soon. Bye, y'all.